Good chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man, I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. I have been going for quite a minute. I've been around, no, but I've been just kind of doing some stuff. But I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, taking a look at my video. So I did have a request quite a while ago to cover the Chess Olympiad women's section. So I got Janelle Frayna versus Carissa Yip, and this is round number 2. So sit back and enjoy, and we're going to look at some chess, homie. So if you're ready to go, man, let's take a look and see what we have for this game. All our people that are coming from the Philippines, I would say meron salamat, of course. But let's get rolling, homie. All right, so we got the move C4. Now, generally, C4 is like a mostly transpositional type of move. It can stand alone. It kind of depends on, how you want to play the game. But more often than not, it does get into D4 openings, and that is what we see here. We got the move G6. We do see the move D4, and we basically have the same as if we went D4, G6, C4, stuff like that. So we got bishop G7. We got knight to F3, D6. We got the move knight to C3. Knight comes to F6. For those of you who do not play like kind of hyper modern stuff, or like Pierce or anything like that, D6 is definitely a move that you want to play somewhat soon, because when you do put your knight on F6, you don't want any E4, E5 stuff coming up. It is a little bit better for white when you do allow that. So we do see D6, we got knight C3, knight F6. So the typical setup, we do see the move E4, and we have a King's Indian defense. For those of you that play against or with the King's Indian, you're like, yay, the King's Indian. Yes, we have arrived at the King's Indian. I got you, bro. Fear not. So we do see castles by black. Bishop goes to E2. And I think some of you guys might be wondering, why am I going bishop to E2? Isn't that lazy? Doesn't that suck? Like, why don't we go bishop to D3? Now, bishop to D3 is an actual, move. But there are two ideas present when you do go bishop to E2. One of the ideas that a King's Indian player, really from both sides, kind of has is moving this knight somewhere, maybe something like this, so that you can get in the move F5. Generally, you'll see an E5 and maybe something like D5, locking everything up. And then the most logical pawn break is F5. So we are trying to make, a knight to H5 jump a little bit, worse for black. Because we have the bishop and the queen kind of on that square. Also, another thing that you have as white is sometimes you see an F3, H3, and then a G4, G5 kind of a push. And one of the main places that the knight can go is on this to H5. So you do kind of have this knight kind of moving out of the way. You are trying to make it very, very bad for black to go a knight H5. Knight comes here, possibly sometimes tries to come down there. So you just try to knock that all out the way. So that is why bishop to E2 is a legitimate move. We do see knight B to D7. We got castles by white. We got the thematic E5 like I was talking about before. And we're kind of at a crucial point. I mean, you have the option to go D5. You can also just kind of wait on black and kind of see what they do. There are two different options there. So we got rook to E1, we got rook to E8, and then we do see bishop to F1. And we are just making sure that we protect this oh so valuable E4 pawn. You definitely do not want to lose these central pawns on me. Pawn takes D4, knight takes D4. We do see the move A6. We got the move F3. And we kind of have some Sicilian dragon type positions here. Kind of like a Najdorf situation. So as you guys go through and you kind of study a lot of different openings, you kind of see them blend together a little bit. So, you kind of snap into some ideas. We do see the move C6. We got knight down to B3. And we are very much eyeballing this pawn. I want a pawn. No, I didn't. Queen C7 and you don't get the pawn, but it's okay. The world is not over. You still have some possibilities here. So we do see bishop going to E3. We got knight down to E5. We got a rook going over to C1. And then we do see bishop going to E6. And we have reached a point in the game that I bet you $1,000 million that you cannot guess this move. If you do, I'm going to be broke. But if you want to pause the video and try to guess what move Janelle plays here, go ahead and do so. Okay, so now it's possible that you guessed this move. You would have to be thinking a few moves deep. but it is a possible move that maybe you can get. But if you did, congratulations to you. The move is knight to d5. Now, it might look kind of strange. You might be thinking like, why am I just going to go knight d5 for? Like, there's a c6 pawn right there, right? Well, after pawn takes, you would be taking back, or I mean, if the pawn would take, I mean, then you would be taking back with the pawn. You would basically get this position either way, and this pawn is pinned at the moment, but if you did take with the c pawn, obviously you would be, like, I'll just show you. So let's say the pawn took right here, you would be taking back here, you are hitting this bishop, you are also hitting this queen, so just visually you can see what I'm talking about, but in the game we did not see that. The bishop just took immediately, and then you did see the c pawn take, and that c pawn is pinned to the queen, so you have kind of the same issues. We do see the move c5, we got the move a4, rook a goes to b8, and then we do see kind of the clamping down move a5. This has some in-game implications to it also, so I'll put a card up there in the corner so you can kind of see my video on the pawn freeze when one pawn freezes two. But, you know, you are really just trying to make this b5 push very undesirable. As you guys probably might have noticed, we do kind of have somewhat of a Benoni structure. So, you know, this is definitely one of the main ideas with that. So we do see queen going up back to d8. We got a rook up to c2. We got the move a6, and then the queen does go to a1. And like I said, white is very much anticipating this move. After this move, a takes b6 en passant. You know, you are very heavily on this pawn here, which is what we see in the game. We got knight to h5, and it's like, what did I say earlier, bro? I told you that this move... Nah, I'm playing with you. This move is a very big idea. You are trying to say, hey, man, I want to plop down here. You're also clearing the way for this queen, which is going to become relevant later on. We got knight going to d2, and we are thinking of possibly redirecting to c4. Benoni ideas, like I said. King slides over to h8, extra safe. We got queen up to a4. We got the move b5 now. Pawn takes en passant. We got rook taking, and then we do see now bishop taking a6. And I will say that this is actually just a pawn in the position. There's not really a way for black to kind of get their pawn back. So we are in a very legitimate situation if you are Janelle. So we do see rook going to b4. That's kind of one of the only things you can do as black, is just kind of like harass white and be like, hey, you got to move. But white's like, bro, I'm going to go to a2 and everything is gravy. So we do see that, and it is just a pawn. We do see the move f5, and this is actually a very critical decision point in the game for both players. We actually see in the position bishop going back to f1, and then we do see f4, and then bishop goes back to f2. Now, backing up, something I really wanted to show you guys in this position here. It is very critical that you actually capture here. Pawn takes f5, allow pawn taking f5. So you have allowed the g file to open up, but there is really nice, the way that Janelle played that immediately, there was a very nice idea that Carissa did have in the game. And then after you go bishop to f1, I mean, you're kind of holding things. I mean, you got everything kind of like, you know, taken care of. The tension is taken care of in the middle of the board. So this was something that was a little bit missed by Carissa in this position. But if we back up, in this position here, after you see bishop to f1, you actually have the possibility of taking here. And then after you see knight taking, you would actually be seeing the exchange sacrifice. Rook takes e4, pawn takes e4, and then the knight goes to g4. And after you see the bishop trying to retreat and kind of hold everything, you would be looking at bishop to e5. And you kind of see a lot of pieces hanging out in this area. This queen is about to start trying to come into h4. So you have given the exchange, but you have a massive, massive attack going. So this was kind of something that both players kind of had possibilities here, but we did not see that. Like I said, we did see bishop quietly going to f1, and then after f4, we do see bishop going back to f2. And everything has basically just kind of evened out for both players. We do see g5. Now, one of the things, if you are black in this King's Indian right here, you do know that you are down a pawn, but you definitely know that you have to get some kingside attack rolling to try to start getting at white, so that way white doesn't just have like a pawn for free. So we do see the move g5. We got knight to c4, the idea I was talking about a little earlier. So we got a rook going over to g8. Queen goes to a6. You're trying to say, hey, bro, I already got a pawn, son. Why don't I get another pawn, homie? But black is like, bro, I'm not going to let you do that. You can't allow that, absolutely. So we got knight taking c4 and then bishop taking c4. And then we do see rook to b6. And this queen is constantly getting harassed, bro. Leave my queen alone, homie. We do see queen going down to a3, extra safe. We got bishop to e5. So, like I was telling you before, you know, both players kind of overlooked like some really nice tactical abilities, opportunities in the position. But you can kind of see that Carissa, like she was kind of thinking about that stuff because, I mean, you do have this bishop going to e5. You got the knight over here still. You're definitely thinking of doing this and kind of getting, you know, queen to a4 or queen to h4. So you kind of see that, you know, she still kind of has in her mind like some ideas that could have maybe came about. But sometimes the timing might just kind of be off. Also, sometimes you might be a little bit fearful of going into variations because sometimes maybe you're short-sighted, like, you know, seeing it kind of like it just doesn't look that attractive. But we do see a rook going over to b1. We got a rook to b4. We got bishop down to e1. And, I mean, logically, you're thinking, you know what? This rook is about to move, bro. Because, like, what am I looking at? Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. I mean, everything is everything, right? Absolutely not. If you're Carissa, you're like, bro, I'm throwing a check, slide the king over, and then I'm just going to go g4. Like, who needs a rook? This is actually a very sharp position. This is actually pretty nice, play. So you are giving up the exchange, but you do have a lot of attack coming up. So the bishop does take b4. She's like, hey, man, go ahead and give me a rook, son. Pawn takes b4, and we actually see queen going to d3. Now, what you do have to be paying attention to for sure, yes, is the fact that this pawn is going to take here and it's going to be some rippage of the position. The rook is going to be coming down. The queen is going to be coming down. So you do kind of have to be fearful of that. So you can't just be continuing to grab pawns. But in this position, some of you guys might be wondering, wait a minute, like, couldn't I just take the pawn? Like, you could just take the pawn, right? You do have to be careful. If you did go into this right here, after pawn takes f3, you absolutely must not capture back because if you did, you would be looking at rook to g1 with check. The king would be sliding up and then you would be losing a rook for 100% free. You absolutely do not want to do that. So that is something, it is safe to capture this pawn, but you have to make sure that you do not capture back on f3. So that was the key. But I think Janelle kind of looked at that and I mean, it is a deflection tactic by Yip. You are trying to deflect the queen over and make sure that you're not protecting this crucial area of the board. So Janelle just said, hey, I'm going to play safer, queen to d3. This is absolutely a way you could play also, but it was safe to take the pawn as long as you didn't take f3. Queen does come down to f6. We got the rook going over to d1, double attacking this bishop. Why not? And then we do see a bishop going to e3. So like I was telling you guys before, I mean, Carissa Yip did give up the exchange, but now what she has is a monster dark square bishop. Literally can just kind of be on the dark squares for life. And you're kind of, if you're white, going to have to give up an exchange to try to get rid of this bishop, which we do see coming up later. We do see the move e5, and you see that everything kind of plummets. This is a complete blender. I mean, I do it like literally all day, all the time. Do you ever have like a position that you're playing and you like play good for like 20, 25 moves? And you're like, hey man, I'm like a grandmaster, right? And then you just make one move and then everything just kind of plummets down. Yes, you are not alone. I feel your pain. But this does give, Carissa some very, very nice play. And like I was telling you before, I mean, we got the bishop kind of cutting things off. The queen is going to be coming in here. The position is going to be getting ripped open with pawn takes f3 in this. So this kind of accelerates everything. The queen was not staying on, f6 anyway. So it's like, Carissa's like, bro, I got you, man. You are hitting a lot. You are also hitting this pawn. I mean, you can try to creep around and maybe kind of get a checkmate situation rolling. So this is absolutely not where you want to be. We do see rook going to e1. But like I said, Janelle is like, bro, you know what? I kind of have to give the exchange back, homie, because this bishop is just way too strong. We do see queen taking h2, and you are just in time to take on e3 with the rook. But instead of just taking back with the pawn, Carissa Yip says, bro, I'm going to throw in a check, which these checks are probably like the most annoying checks ever. We got queen to h1 with check. We got king up to e2. We got pawn taking e3. Queen taking e3. Like, we're trying to kind of get the queen in there to kind of, defend. We got pawn taking f3, pawn taking f3. So it kind of seems like everything has been defended. Everything is good to go. But we do see queen to h2 with check. King goes to d3. And then knight to f4 check. It's like, man, stop being mean, bro. Like, why are you being mean to me, dog? Stop that, bro. So you really don't have a whole lot of good options here. We got king up to d4. Queen takes c2. You do get a piece back, but as everything kind of, the smoke clears, you do see that you are down the exchange as white. So it's crazy how black started everything down the exchange, and now they are up the exchange. It's kind of crazy, bro. Queen goes to b2 with check. The king slides over to e4. We got queen taking e5 with check. And absolutely, if you are up some material or like an exchange, you always want to consider, you know, trading down queens, because generally you're going to have a more favorable endgame. Not always. So you got to do some calculation, but most of the time, yes. We got queen taking e5 with check, pawn taking e5. We got king taking e5. So it kind of seems like maybe you could kind of get something rolling with these pawns, but it will not be. The rook goes over to b8. Obviously, you have that passed pawn over here. You can throw the rook behind. You definitely want to start pushing that. So you don't really have a whole lot of other good options. You do see bishop going to b3, and now your bishop is just kind of just like a blockading a pawn. We got king to g7. We got d6. King to f8. We got the move f4. We got h5. We got f5, h4. The king goes down to f4. We got rook over to d8. We got king to e4. And it is in this position that Janelle resigns the game. And, I mean, I think some of you guys might be looking at it like, yeah, I know I'm down in exchange, man. But it's like, am I just completely lost? You absolutely are. And I will show you exactly why. The rook would be taking d6 here, obviously. So now you are down one pawn and you got a bishop. So you're kind of losing your footing. We got the king sliding down to e3. This is really kind of, as far as king moves go, the only really safe square, because anything else allows this rook down here. And we are just continuing to hit this bishop and trying to push this pawn. So we kind of have these two pawns rolling. So this is one of the more safe moves. But you are having to remember to be in the square of the pawn here. I will put that card up here also for those of you that are kind of curious about what the square of the pawn is or kind of how it works. You do kind of have to maintain this area of the board over here because this pawn is going to be running. So taking advantage of that, Carissa just says, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and push h3. You kind of have to step to, you know, one of these squares right here so that you can cut off this pawn. So we do see the king going to f2. After we see the move h2, king goes to g2, we do now see rook to d2 with check. And this not only is cutting the king off more, but you really don't have a lot of good options. You can't capture this pawn. You absolutely can't go up here because this is going to be queening. So you really are kind of forced to go king h1. Now, as you guys can see, the king is stalemated. There is nowhere for this king to go. It cannot go up. It cannot go up. It cannot go over there. So the king is tied down. So you are going to get into a situation where this bishop is going to have to move at some point. So if we have like king to e7, at some point this king is going to come down and blockade this pawn, so you can't move that. So you're going to be forced to make a bishop movement, and you are going to be trying to push this, you know, this pawn down. Also, the king can literally just swing all the way over here, and you do have some mate threats going on. So in light of that, that is why Janelle went ahead and said, man, I'm going to go ahead and throw the towel in. So that is that game. I appreciate the suggestion. You know, I always got your back, man. Anybody that suggests, you know, a video, I am going to do my best to get it done for you. But, you know, we do have the World Championship going on right now, so I'm going to be doing a video pretty soon on that. I heard it was a French, so that is very interesting to me as a French player. So all my people in the Philippines, I would say, maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking mga video. Mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking mga kaibigan? I appreciate you guys very much for coming by. Sige ingat, and I'm going to catch you guys next time.